There's no seat for high school graduates like you in this event. A loser like you has no place here. Get the hell out of my face."
The director gave me a hearty and joyful smile and told me off. I have a lot of things I want to say, but I can't go against my boss, the director of the department. All I could do was to follow his orders. My name is Matt, I'm 27 years old. My mother passed away soon after my birth. Afterwards, I lived with my father until he died in a tragic accident at work. I was just a kid in elementary school when I was taken in by my paternal grandparents. However, the grandparents were involved in a car pileup accident, and they both died. I was in high school at the time, and all my relatives were talking behind my back, saying that Matt brings bad luck, and no one wanted to take me in. For a while, I lived alone in my grandparents' house. I wanted to give my grandparents who raised me such a comfortable life, so I studied hard to get into a good company in the future. But now my grandparents are no longer with me. Studying seems pointless now. Having lost all of my beloved family members, I was left feeling powerless and dropped out of university. However, I needed to earn a living, so I got a job at the local construction company and started working as a site worker. I worked without thinking until I was exhausted, and then went home to sleep. To forget my sorrow, I just kept repeating these empty days. Then, one day, something happened.
How about living with me?
It was my uncle from my mother's side who suddenly showed up at my grandparents' house and said that I had lost touch with my mother's side of the family after she died, and I had only met my uncle when I was little. I was confused at first when he suddenly offered me to live with him, but it seems that he is concerned about me.
You're still a child. You need to be under the care of an adult.
Uncle.
Besides, I've been living alone as a single man. I've always been lonely by myself. So I'd like to live together with Matt.
He said so and winked mischievously at me. Seeing him like that made me smile for the first time in a while, and I decided to move in with him. My uncle took good care of me. He provided me with everything I needed for clothing, food, and housing, and also gave me advice about work. The company I was working at paid low wages and had a high risk of injury, so he was worried about me and introduced me to a new job.
Your father died in an accident at work. As a father figure to you, I'm worried about you.
The company my uncle introduced me to was a major corporation where normally someone with just a high school diploma wouldn't be able to get a job. I was assigned to a sales department that was short-staffed and incredibly busy, almost desperate for extra hands. At first, the reaction from others was iffy. Why would a high school graduate join this company? I'll do my best not to cause any trouble. I had learned business manners from my uncle before joining the company and had done all the studying I could. I worked hard, taking full advantage of my knowledge and skills. Plus, the physical and mental strength I gained from my construction job also helped me as a salesperson. Gradually, I started to achieve results, and after a year, I had become a fully familiar member of the sales department. Once I became a member of the team, our company had a great atmosphere and was a comfortable place to work. I hope to keep working here until retirement. Feeling quite comfortable here, I've been thinking about continuing to work at this company for a long time to come. But then one day, an unexpected event occurred. It was early autumn, shortly after I turned 27. Our company's president was promoted to chairman, and the vice president was decided to be the new president. The aim seems to be to bring a fresh perspective into the company and strive for further corporate development. In line with this, there were changes in personnel within the company. The manager of the sales department I belong to has been transferred to a branch office.
My elderly mother lives alone in my hometown. I had requested a transfer to the local branch there for a while now, and it's been approved. I'm living and working with my mother from now on.
I see. It's sad, but please do your best there too. The manager was a good man that treated even me, who was a high school graduate, without discrimination. His transfer was a bit of a shock to me, but I can't just keep feeling down about it. The new manager for our sales department was appointed from the branch office's sales department. It seems that the candidates for the next manager, including the assistant manager and the section chief, are currently handling a significant project and have expressed a desire to defer any promotion.
I'm looking forward to working with you all.
The new director, Johnson, greeted us with a big smile. At first, I thought he would be friendly and approachable, but he...
Hey you, what's your highest level of education?
I graduated from a university.
You have a fairly decent educational background.
At our first meeting, Director Johnson unhesitatingly asked us about our educational backgrounds. I later learned he judged people by their academic qualifications and either completely ignored those who didn't meet his standards or subjected them to behavior bordering on power harassment. Of course, Director Johnson doesn't like people like me who graduated from high school.
You're a high school graduate. I can't believe it. How can someone with such a low-bottom education be in this company and in the head office's sales department? I was assigned to a branch office's sales department.
He ignored all my achievements and looked down on me simply for being a high school graduate. Whenever he opened his mouth, it was nothing but insults and foul language. I can count on one hand the number of times he's actually called me by my name, dumping his work on me and only taking achievements from me is his daily routine.
You should be grateful I even use a high school graduate like you.
His unbelievable actions and words made it seem like he didn't even regard me as human. Moreover, he started sabotaging my work to drive me out of the company. One day, something happened. I was preparing to visit a client where we were in the final stages of consultation. I was planning to use a projector for my presentation, so I packed a USB with the presentation data into my bag. However, why is the data gone? I realized at the last minute that all the data in the USB was deleted. I managed to receive the data, but we started the presentation much later than scheduled. Of course, this left a bad impression on the client. Despite my best efforts, the presentation didn't go well, and I returned to the company disheartened.
What's wrong with you? You look so depressed. Let me guess. Your presentation was a failure. It's no surprise. The presentations can't be done without data.
As Director Johnson said that with a smirk, I realized that he was the culprit. I didn't mind him disliking me, but I never expected him to go this far. I did everything I could to recover the lost time and managed to secure the contract. When I reported that the contract was finalized, Director Johnson had a look on his face that seemed to say he was not pleased.
You are getting cocky for a high school graduate.
His sharp gaze made me suspect he would repeat his actions. My premonition soon came true. I was heading to a party celebrating the new president's inauguration at the luxury hotel. However, I encountered Director Johnson outside the venue.
Why are you here?
Well, I was also invited to the party.
A useless high school graduate was invited. Wait here.
I wasn't allowed to enter the venue, so I had no choice but to wait outside. Sooner after, Director Johnson came back, holding my seat with both hands.
I don't know what the mistake was, but when I checked, there really was a seat for you. You know, trash like you doesn't belong here.
As he said so, he roughly put my seat down in the hallway.
There's no seat for high school graduates like you in this event. A loser like you has no place here. Get the hell out of my face.
Director Johnson grinned and said, I guess he really hates me. I realized that once again, it's impossible not to feel anything after being treated like this, but after all, he is still my boss. As I am just a general employee, I am not allowed to rebel outright. I understood it. I'm leaving now. With just that retort, I immediately turned on my heel and left the scene. However, just 10 minutes later, I received a call from Director Johnson, and I answered the phone with a frown on my face. Hello.
Come back here right now.
Do I need to come back? But you told me to go away, right? What is going on?
Just come back right now. It's an order from your boss.
Just then the call ended abruptly. I headed back to the party venue with a sigh. When I returned to the party venue, I saw the new president and his secretary, and there was Director Johnson with a pale face. I'm back, Director Johnson. What happened? When I spoke up, Director Johnson quickly turned towards me and showed a confused expression.
Well.
I let out a small sigh at Director Johnson's hesitant response. What's going on? I turned to the secretary instead of him and asked her. However, instead of the secretary answering, the new president, who was standing next to her, spoke up first.
I heard this fool kick you out. Is that true, Matt?
Yes, sir, it's true, President. The new president smiled bitterly and replied to me.
Please call me Uncle Bob, like you always do. I accidentally revealed your true identity to this big fool earlier.
Hearing the whole story, I couldn't help myself but be dumbfounded. After kicking me out, as the start time of the party approached, Director Johnson was waiting outside the venue for the arrival of the new president. It seems he was trying to curry favor by greeting the new president before the other employees. But then,
President, I apologize. There's been a bit of trouble.
As the new president appeared, before Director Johnson could greet him, the secretary suddenly stepped forward.
Problem? What happened?
Actually, the chairman's son is missing. We checked and his seat itself is gone.
Matt isn't here yet. What do you mean his seat is gone?
Director Johnson's eyes widened at the words of the new president.
No seat for Matt. Could it be that?
Finding it hard to believe his own speculation, Director Johnson asked the new president,
Is this Matt from the sales department we're talking about?
The president glanced at his secretary and replied to Director Johnson as if he had no choice.
Yes, Matt from the sales department is the chairman's son. The chairman and I have been close personally for years, and I've known his son, Matt, for a long time.
Indeed, I've had a long relationship with him. My uncle had legally adopted me and taken me in. However, my uncle had no experience in raising children, and at first he struggled with how to care him. That's when he consulted with Uncle Bob, who was the vice president at the time. We had a good private relationship, and he had a son who was about my age, so he gave my uncle various advice. Uncle Bob was concerned about me, frequently visited my house. He was amiable and kind, and with his help, my uncle and I became closer. I joined my uncle's company, but I didn't want to be treated specially, so I kept my relationship with him a secret. On the day I first called my uncle Dad, he apparently rushed to report it to Uncle Bob right away.
I got a call out of the blue from the president in tears, wondering what was going on.
I vividly remember that I apologized to the smiling Uncle Bob, turning bright red with embarrassment, saying, "My father has caused you trouble."
It was my request that he attend a party this time, but where was his seat gone? Oh, by the way, only a few executives know about this, so please keep it under wraps.
The moment he heard Uncle Bob's words, Director Johnson's face turned pale blue. Afterwards, Uncle Bob and the secretary confronted Director Johnson, who was acting strangely. They learned he had put my seat in the hallway and sent me away. So that's what happened.
Why didn't you tell me?
Director Johnson, with a mix of anger and confusion, confronted me. I grimaced and kept my distance from him. I asked to keep it a secret when I joined the company because if people knew I was the chairman's son, they would favor me. I wanted to be promoted on my own merits. Plus, if it got out, it would attract troublesome people like you, Director Johnson. I pointed out, leaving him speechless. But maybe I should have been upfront from the beginning. Then you, Director Johnson, wouldn't have resorted to borderline bullying behavior towards me.
Did I bully you?
Hearing my words, Uncle Bob's face contorted. Deciding it was time to come clean, I revealed all the instances of bullying I had suffered from Director Johnson. As I shared my story, Uncle Bob's expression began to mix with anger. The secretary standing next to him also grimaced significantly.
I can't believe we have someone of such low caliber in our company. Before judging others by their education, you should reflect on your own character.
Faced with the secretary's relentless words, Director Johnson hung his head.
Indeed. I heard you were promoted from the branch office due to your achievements, but from Matt's story, it seems those were not your own.
No, it's not like that. I mean,
Director Johnson's gaze wandered around with cold sweat dripping down his face. And when his gaze turned to me, he tried to cling on to me with a goofy smile on his face.
I was good to you, right? I gave you work and was tough at times, but it was all to help you grow.
Disgusted by his unconvincing excuses, I raised my hand to cut off Director Johnson mid-sentence. You didn't delegate work to me. You dumped it on me. And then, calling me a high school graduate, bottom of the barrel, incompetent, you've constantly ridiculed me. How can anyone grow with such horrible verbal abuse? Where in the world can you find someone who could? I've never felt you were good to me.
Wait, please. My dream is to be promoted to an executive position.
I don't care about that. Then, I pulled something out of my pocket.
What's that?
This is a voice recorder. I've been recording your harassment at work. I was preparing to bring this to HR, but it seems that won't be necessary now. When I glanced at Uncle Bob, he nodded firmly at me.
Let's take this matter to HR immediately. It seems our reform has some inappropriate decisions.
While Uncle Bob said so, he glared at Director Johnson with cold eyes. That must have been the final straw. Director Johnson's face turned from blue to white, and he collapsed weakly to the ground. After that, Uncle Bob immediately contacted HR as he had promised. As a result, Director Johnson not only received a stern warning from Uncle Bob, but also directly from Uncle who heard the story. He was then demoted and sent back to the branch office because he was not allowed to stay in the same department with me. The story of his demotion due to bullying had spread throughout the branch office, and I heard that he no longer had a place in the company. Having lost his position and everything else, Director Johnson apparently looked utterly exhausted. The new president also emphasized to keep my identity as the chairman's son confidential if I wanted to remain in the company. No one would believe Director Johnson anymore. Meanwhile, I've been working comfortably in the now peaceful sales department. The new director took over after wrapping up a project as the assistant head. Following that, the section chief became the assistant head, and I was promoted to a senior position. I plan to work even harder than before and aim for further promotions.